Donald Trump's record-breaking national emergencies outdated use of emergency powers to shape policy and law. The habit of national emergencies dour. Since taking office for his second term, President Donald Trump has made a habit of declaring national emergencies. This pattern of behavior raises questions about the limits of executive power and the role of Congress in emergency situations. In the U.S., declaring a national emergency is an extraordinary measure that unlocks enhanced powers contained in 150 different provisions of law. These laws give the president authority to take actions beyond what Congress has authorized in non-emergency situations. This can be a tempting tool for presidents who want to implement policy without sufficient support from Congress or when Congress has prohibited certain actions. The concept of national emergencies dates back to World War I, and it evolved organically over time. However, this organic nature turned out to be a problem because there was no overarching law that governed the process. It wasn't until the 1970s, when Congress enacted the National Emergencies Act, that a time limit was placed on emergency declarations without renewal by the president. The NE also gave Congress the power to terminate an emergency declaration using a legislative veto. However, in 1983, the Supreme Court held that unconstitutional. Today, if Congress wants to terminate an emergency declaration, it must pass a law with a veto-proof supermajority, which is almost impossible. How far can the president go with emergency powers? Some laws seem reasonable on their face, but others seem alarming, such as taking over or shutting down communications facilities or freezing assets of individuals deemed a threat. The International Economic Powers Act allows the president to make it illegal for anyone to engage in financial transactions with that person. President Trump's use of emergency powers has raised concerns about the potential for abuse. Some argue that Congress made a mistake by leaving these laws in place without safeguards. They believe it is time for a reckoning, and for Congress to reform the process of national emergency declarations and terminate them when necessary. The current situation with President Trump's emergencies is making its way through the courts, and the question remains whether his actions meet the legal standard for an emergency. The U.S. trade deficit with China, for instance, has been a status quo for. However, by declaring it an emergency, Trump unlocks special authorities that would not otherwise be available to him. While some might see this as a necessary measure,